Are you an investigative professional? Have you heard about the investigatorstoolbox.com? Check out this exclusive online community for networking, learning, and data resource management. The Toolbox is a one-stop shop for all your investigative needs. Check out our robust collection of forums, our comprehensive learning page, and our expansive library of OSINT research tools. We've just released an app for both iOS and Android, so you can access the site seamlessly right off your phone. We have also partnered with some amazing companies like Crosstrack, Delphoint, IRB, Scope Now, the Hetherington Group, PI Magazine, PI Gear, Merlin Locate Services, Parabin, the PI Institute of Education, and so many more. They're offering over $1,250 worth of discounts and benefits exclusively to community members today. Use code PIP201836 and save 10% on your membership. That's www.investigators-toolbox.com.
Crosstrack's case management system. That is what we are talking about today. Are you using a case management system? What are you waiting for? If you don't use a case management system, you really need to look into implementing that into your business regimen. I've been at it with Crosstrack now a little over a year, and it's just been a game changer for my business. They are SOC 2 certified, SOC 2 Type 2 certified. If you don't know what that means, it means that they're encryption system is second to none, and you have to go through a whole screening process to figure out if you can even qualify for that, and they have. So you know with certainty your data is being protected. I don't think there's another case management system out there that offers that same ability to have the SOC 2 Type 2 certification. As you guys know, I've been singing the praises of Crosstrack, and I really believe in this product, and I believe you should check it out. Contact Brad, contact Pat, one of the team members over there, and see if it's right for you. Crosstrack's case management system, check it out today.
Need the best insurance coverage out there? Check out SIIS Insurance. Make your insurance purchasing process a breeze by dealing with the leading PI industry experts. All filings for your state PI license are handled directly by their staff. Certificates of coverage to your clients are fulfilled the same day as requested. If you work armed, no worries, as they always include firearms liability in their coverage. Coverage can be expanded to cover executive protection, consulting liability, guard operations, and for cyber liability inexpensively. Best of all, be sure to indicate on the application that you're a regular PI Perspective listener or Investigator Toolbox subscriber, as amazing discounts apply. So make sure you take advantage today. Visit Security Investigators Insurance Solution, SIISinsurance.com. Welcome to this week's show. We're going to try a new segment format. Our first segment today is Kevin Whalen from SIISinsurance.com. Kevin's been servicing our industry for over 30 years and is a go-to guy for investigator insurance. So let's drop in with Kevin and your host, Private Investigator Matt Spaier.
And welcome everybody to this week's episode of PI Perspective. This is Matt Spaier, your host. Today we are talking insurance, and every now and then I like to check in with folks that service our industry, and this is a really, really important one. So today we have Kevin Whalen from the Campbell Group today with us. So Kevin, welcome to the program.
Hey, thank you, Matt. I appreciate you having me on the show.
All right, great. It's the honor is mine, man. You're very well known in the industry, and I was really happy that to have you come on and talk shop with us. So these are things like we don't really think about, or we don't want to think about. Once a year, we renew our policies, and I would say probably most of us don't even review our policies before renewing them, which is not a good thing. So I wanted to have you come on and just talk about some things that are important to realize when you get to that point, or if you're unhappy with whoever you're using right now, some things to keep in mind if you're looking to make a switch. So with that being said, let's open up some talking points here, man. Let's talk insurance.
Yeah, I've been doing a security guard and investigators insurance for about 30 years now. It's hard money you're throwing at this, and usually it's a kind of a necessary evil. Either you're got to meet your state's requirements for coverage, or customers demand it. Probably lastly is somebody wants to cover themselves, so you see people buying as inexpensive product as they can without taking a look at it to meet some contractual responsibilities or state requirements.
Right.
And never really look any further into what the product is, what it does for them.
Right.
It's kind of a boring, dry topic that nobody loves, but it's absolutely critical to what people do. And lawsuits are not getting less active these days. And
Right.
a lot of the courts closed and COVID stuff. Bottom line, some attorneys have more time on their hands. There's more suits, and there's more sensitivity to libel, slander, acting unprofessional, that type of thing. So everything is rich environment for getting sued as a PI. So just take a few minutes to make sure everything's copacetic.
So I would say probably cyber is something that's really jumped up in the past 2 or 3 years, at least, right? Where we're doing a lot of online research. We're housing our own data, and having to be responsible for that. So what are some of the aspects that it's important to have as far as your cyber coverage goes?
Very few PIs to date carry cyber. That's changed a lot in our organization lately because I really include it with our product now, and I do because we were able to get it done inexpensively.
Right.
Bottom line, if you're storing any client private information, even to the point where you only process credit cards and take people's financial information, it's like any other merchant service company or vendor, really need the company. And then if you get hacked and you got to go through the whole verification process so you can take credit cards again, that can be really time consuming. To find somebody to do it, get you recertified, get you back taking credit card payments. We're charging $90 for $100,000 cyber liability.
Right.
Unbelievable, because up till about a year ago, cyber liability was running, maybe $1,000 a person. Now we've got that down to $90. And I know that other competitors are working it down at this time too, but you're as likely to get sued for a cyber situation, loss of information, or you get hacked with your customer's credit card information. You're as likely to get sued for that as you are for a standard professional liability suit.
Right. So let's talk about that whole process then about getting sued. So let's say I own an investigative business and all of a sudden I get served with a summons or I get a claim letter from somebody and I'm like, oh crap, right? This has never happened to me before. What do I do now? So what should that everyday investigator understand their responsibilities and what they need to do when something like that happens?
There's a timely reporting clause in everybody's policy that says, you must give the carrier notice of a claim in a timely fashion after you become aware of it. My coaching would be, don't wait till you get that lawsuit. If you know of an incident or you've been accused of a wrong, take 5 minutes, call your broker up and say, hey, this is what's going on. Most agents just take a note of it, put it on your electronic file that you made a call in. And it may not justify turning to the carrier at that point.
Yeah.
But then when the suit comes in, you're going to be all set as far as notification. Important part is, these suits are never quick. You do an investigation today, something goes to trial in a year and a half based on information you uncovered. Then, the unhappy spouse or the unhappy plaintiff comes back and says, you acquired information not subject to the state PI laws, or you missed something. These omissions are also covered, just like poor acts. Failure to act is covered by most policies.
Right.
And those take years and years. So a lot of times it will be 3, 4, 5 years later after you did the investigation, you get pulled in, and that's kind of more typical than not.
Right.
Two things there, two forms of policies. One called a occurrence-based policy, which we do, covers you forever for the policy term you've had. Whenever you're sued, if you're sued 10 years later, you're covered. The other is called claims made. So your listeners should make sure they don't have what's called a claims made policy. It could be during your policy plus 90 days, and that will rarely ever cover anything for you. So that's really a junk policy.
Right.
Do offer them out there.
Right. No, that's definitely good stuff. So I think another misconception is folks who have bonds, and I know like New York State requires you to have a bond, but it's really
You're one of the lucky few.
It doesn't really cover anything though. So can you explain the difference between bond and insurance, and why it's important to have insurance and not just a bond?
An awful lot of people use the term interchangeably, but two distinctly different things. A licensing bond is typically what you're talking about with a PI. Mm-hmm. And usually it's a low limit, $10,000 or $50,000. You're looking at $100 or $200 in premium. Really, the people who purchase those are in states that require it. There's only a few. New York's one of the few. Some states are a bond, some are bond and insurance, and some are bond or insurance.
Right.
So in Michigan, you can, if you buy the insurance and provide the insurance, it negates the necessity to carry a bond. But the reality is a bond only pays when you're personally broke and you can't meet contractual responsibilities. We sell an awful lot of bonds because a lot of these states require them. Mm-hmm. I've never seen a claim in 30 years. And if you can get one or the other, buy the insurance and don't even bother with a bond.
Yeah, unless you're in New York. If you're in New York, you got to bond.
Unless you're in New York, you want to hold your license, then they got you.
You actually have to submit the bond with your PI application.
And if you deal with any of your state legislatures, say, hey, write that out of our law because it's stupid.
Yeah. Somebody
made a deal. Associations should really address that.
Yeah, somebody made a deal and is definitely getting paid every year on that, or every other year in New York. Every 2 years we got to renew.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. So can you explain to me the hired auto or non-hired auto?
Hired in a policy. Auto?
Yeah. See, I don't even know what it is. So.
Yeah, that's a typical contractual requirement that customers require. And what that, of course, if you've got a auto you're using every day in your PI business, you have a business policy on that. Mm-hmm. But quite often you have employees running around in their own cars. And then, you also have some rental cars, things like that. So your customers are looking to be covered regardless of what happened to an auto. And I think it's largely because of the catastrophic nature of hitting and injuring somebody. If you have a big claim, a lot of times it's auto related.
Right.
This would cover outside of your commercial auto, would cover any employees or any rental cars, things like that. And it's inexpensive. You're looking at a couple $100 a year.
Yeah.
No, that's a typical contractual requirement.
So basically, if I understand you correctly, then you have company-owned vehicles, which would be under a commercial policy, commercial auto policy, right? But let's say you have people that work for you that are using their own personal vehicle. They're being compensated whatever percentage per mile that you're giving them. They're using their own vehicle. They end up having an accident. Their insurance policy, which they have on their own vehicle, would be first, and then the non-hired would be a secondary policy. Is that how that works? Or?
Yeah, that's how it would work. And if they happen to be uninsured on that vehicle, and that's really what your customers are looking for, regardless of what happens, they want to make sure there's insurance under your name. So you're correct that their primary coverage would be that individuals. Mm-hmm. But if you have a serious claim, a lot of times people are buying the state minimum $50,000 or $100,000 coverage. You have $1 million claim, that's not going to do it. Matter of fact, that carrier is not going to defend it. They're just going to burn a check because they know they're going to have that much in defense anyways.
Right.
Then no coverage. Then we would come in and stack over top of that with another $1 million.
Right. And one of the things I always do, like I do a lot of auto accident cases where I meet people after they've had an accident. We actually take a look at their insurance declaration page and all that. We talk about supplemental underinsured motorist coverage. I think even if you have a commercial vehicle policy, you should definitely have a good level of some coverage on that. So basically the way that works is somebody hits you, they only have a minimal policy, but the value of the injury is higher than that. The person can actually claim in on that supplemental underinsured motorist policy after they've exhausted the initial payment from the person who caused the accident, right? Did I get that right?
Yeah, you got that right.
Okay.
And,
Right, cool.
and it's not expensive to request that.
Yeah, so that's definitely a trick, and it is very inexpensive. And I can tell you that on the personal injury side, I've had experiences where I've met with somebody, they had an accident, we had that conversation, and I encouraged them like, hey, go and up this because you have the minimum here, and you're not going to get anything. You know, you definitely want to bump it up, and it'll cost you an extra, I don't know, $50 or $75 a year. I mean, it was like nothing, right? They didn't do it. And then they had a catastrophic injury on a second accident where loss of limbs, right? And the person who caused that particular accident had a $25,000 policy. And it's like, all right, did you get the sum? No, I didn't. I never did it. I know we had that conversation. I never did it. And I'm just like, oh, man.
Right.
That's terrible.
Right.
But it does happen, right?
It does.
So what are some of the other things? Well, let's talk about actually terrorism coverage, right?
Right.
What's that about? What does that actually cover?
That's a federal mandate post 9/11. A lot of carriers tried to exclude coverage due to an act of war. And because there is a war exclusion in all commercial insurance policies. Mm-hmm. So it was really a conundrum, trying to figure out, what was 9/11, war, terrorism, how do you define it? So the federal government says, you know what, we're going to define terrorism, and all commercial agents and brokers like myself are required to offer it. Mm-hmm. The reality is they've defined the definition of terrorism way different, Matt, than me and anybody in the real world would define it.
Sure.
The definition has to be declared by two divisions of government, the Treasury Department and the House or Senate. It also has to involve $300 million of property damage, and it has to be led by a foreign government. So things we've had since Boston bombing and those types of incidents, the recent deal down in Nashville, those the press calls terrorist incidents. Insurance companies and the government don't define them as terrorist incidents. But really, we have to offer it. It is required. If I were to purchase a product, I'd waive it. It's a $50 charge, and it's only come into play once in the history of the United States, and it was 9/11.
Right.
So typical onesie, twosie PI out there doing investigations, even larger companies, most of them do waive it. Once in a while, contractually, if you're working for the federal government or a Fortune 500 company, they'll require it, and then you have to cover it. But it's of little or no value, and I think it will run its course and it will disappear at some point in time.
So let's talk now about something that's a little more relevant in the last year and a half, business interruption insurance and how that works, and what you've seen dealing with it, I guess, on your side.
What's that, business interruption insurance?
Business interruption, yeah.
Yeah, for standard industry, it's basically a disability policy for your business that will continue paying your bills and you if you have to shut down due to a covered incident. Covered incidents are typically things like fire, lightning, flood, that type of thing.
Gotcha.
You know, a lot of to do with this quote qualify, and carriers came and said it doesn't. For your PI, it just doesn't take, you know, you need an iPhone or a laptop and a Starbucks and you're back in business. So for you guys, it's available, but realistically, you'll figure out a way to stay in business and keep operating. So I don't really see anybody in the PI business purchase it.
Yeah. Have you seen people trying, like in the past year and a half, trying to actually use it because of having the shelter in place and not being able to do as much work?
It's been an area of debate between carriers and clients, and need it if they can get it, and if they have it, if coverage is in play. And it's been a little bit of a gray area for industry. And sometimes, and sometimes it's not. For PIs, usually I haven't seen any business income claims for PIs, because they'll be creative and figure out a way to, if they have a power outage or internet outage, or they can't work because the courts are closed, not assigning work. You've been nimble enough to figure out a way to stay in business, negate any claim. So.
Right. We've all figured out a way to do that to stay in business.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So these are all interesting topics and things that we need to really address and make sure that we're staying on top of it, once a year, and making sure we're doing it. And that's one of the things that I really appreciate about your business and dealing with you was the attention to detail and going through the policies and really understanding what's covered and what's not covered, and just having that interaction, which I thought was really, really great. So you've come on as a supporter of Investigators Toolbox. You're sponsoring the podcast as well, which is great. And I know you're offering some incentives to Toolbox members to be, to use your insurance. And we'll be making an announcement about that. But how do folks get a hold of you if they have just any questions on their policies in general?
My website to do an application, it's a 5-minute application. You'll get a quote back almost immediately, and then hit a credit card link. So the whole purchase process is maybe 5 minutes. Right. And the website is www.SIIS and that's how you get a hold of me, and then they can also go through Investigator Toolbox. Of course, our rates are set on education and training of our applicants. And, with somebody's investing in your offerings and staying on top of their business, it's a risk to us. So we do provide a discount for your participants in an Investigator Toolbox.
Yeah, that's great, man. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to get the word out about that. So Kevin, thank you so much for coming on. This was great. And I really appreciate it. And folks, anyone listening to the show, if you own a investigation business, I highly, highly recommend that you review your coverage and your policies, and making sure that you're properly covered. So, Kevin, thank you for your time.
Very good, Matt. Thank you very much.
Are you overwhelmed with your current caseload? Could you use some help with your skip trace assignments? With Merlin Locate Services, rather than adding staff, you can add an entire skip trace department of licensed private investigators who specialize in skip tracing. Check out merlinlocate.com today. When you work with Merlin Locate Services, you bring on a valuable experience and trusted extension to your team. Delph Point keeps on advancing. The commonality search is here. The new data is unlike anything they currently offer and will go in depth into your target's assets and relationships. Use them on everything from jury research and associate connections to business investigations and fraud cases. You don't want to miss these. Visit delphpoint.com for more details. Sign up and use code PIP20 for additional savings. In 2019, Investigation Education Consultants added a new affiliate in its never-ending quest to provide quality professional investigative training. IEC is now offering certificate courses and investigative training online. Our website, IECOIT.com, will soon offer a certificate in professional investigation for those interested in entering the investigative field. There'll be standalone investigation classes for those seeking continuing education credits, CEUs, or just interested in taking classes for their own personal or professional interests. The classes currently available are Foundations of Investigation, Legal Investigation, Criminal Investigation, Fraud Investigation, Background Investigation, Interviews and Statements, Skip Tracing Locates, Ethics, and Report Writing. Investigator Toolbox members will receive a 20% discount off the listed price. So visit IECOIT.com. The surveillance issue for PI Magazine is here. Make sure you check out all the great content available in this special edition. Available online or via hard copy. And let's jump into segment 2. In this segment, Matt welcomes Rory McMahon. Rory has a passion for teaching investigators and has a great new selection of courses online for current investigators or folks that are looking to get into the field. So please welcome Rory McMahon and your host, once again, private investigator Matt Spaier.
And welcome to the next segment of PI Perspectives. This is Matt Spaier, your host. Today, I reached out to an old friend of mine, Rory McMahon. Rory is, he's one of these guys in the industry that just has this passion for education and teaching. If you want to know his background, be prepared to sit and listen because it's quite impressive. Rory, I want to welcome you to the program. How are you?
It's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Matt.
Yeah, great. So the honors is actually mine. So I met you back at Osmosis, I think 2019. Cynthia Hetherington in Orlando, Florida. You were like, I think you opened up or you were like one of the early on presenters there.
It certainly was early in the morning. I'm not sure which day it was, but it was kind of like right before the end of the world. It was right before COVID struck and we were all locked into our houses.
Yeah, little did we know, 3 or 4 months later,
what was in store.
4 months later, it'd be shelter in place. I didn't even know what that meant till March of 2020. Somebody actually had to explain to me what shelter in place was.
Right.
So, like I had mentioned earlier, you have an extremely impressive background in education, both investigative experience and actually teaching. And you have this investigator education consultants business, essentially, where you're teaching investigators how to do certain techniques, or you're teaching people who want to be investigators how to become investigators. Tell me a little bit more about that program.
Absolutely. I started the company back in 2004. And it was a result of, I became a private investigator in 1990 after having been in federal law enforcement for 12 years. Mm-hmm. And the guy that hired me said, why, it was a program where they were teaching students how to be a certificate program, how to be private investigators. And then a couple of years later, it became an associate's degree program with a major in private investigation. So I taught there from 1990 to 1997, and actually gave it up because I was making more money as a private investigator than I was teaching. So I couldn't afford to be a teacher any longer. But in 2004, he came to me and he said, listen, you developed all of the curriculum for teaching that program. Why don't we form a company and, offer that same background material to post-secondary school, colleges, etc.
Sure.
So that was the genesis of the start of the company. And, I realized in 1990, when I became a private investigator, there was very little information out there, right, in terms of books and whatnot. That's changed significantly. But so I thought, I could provide, some expertise, and that actually led to my getting a book deal in 2000 with CRC Press, yep, where I created a book called a Practical Handbook for personal investigators, and then it was subsequently reissued 2 additional times. So the 3rd edition came out in 2013. But so that's where it all started.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. It's such an impressive background. And I think what I really appreciate about the program, what you're doing, Rory, is it's not just for folks that decide like one day I want to be a private investigator, right? So the classes that you offer are for investigators who maybe don't do a certain aspect of investigations and want to get into that field. Like if they wanted to know, if they were a surveillance person, they wanted to know like how to do fraud research or brush up on those skills. Like these are the programs, the classes, the tracks that you're offering. And it's not just like a 1 hour webinar. This is like really intensive training and really hands-on stuff, right?
Absolutely. Basically, the primary purpose is twofold. Number one, it would be for people who want or who are looking for a career. Somebody say like getting out of the military, they don't know what they want to do. Right. So they're looking for a new career. This would be the training that they need in order to get an entry level position in the field. I mean, it covers, I mean, basically that's what my focus was when I was teaching at City College. And that's what the focus of this program is. Right. So, and we even go to the point where we try and, partner with the professional associations in the area to get them, jobs once, they've completed the program. Sure. But the second area is absolutely to assist those that, are working in the field, but kind of don't really have their own special niche, so that, they could, add on or actually get into, a certain field that they're interested in, such as legal investigation, criminal defense investigation, fraud investigation. Those are my three passions. Yeah. So, it's not a big stretch for them to be able to use the skills that they already know. They're interviewing, their surveillance, their records research into these fields, so that where they could take those type of cases. Right. So it serves both purposes.
Definitely. And you've got 9 classes available, 9 courses right now, right? And
that's correct.
With yes. Another 2 on the way, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So
the final 2.
What are these courses? I know one of them is a foundational course, and then obviously right. I mentioned the legal investigative course. So right. what are the other 7? Sure.
The 5 classes that I taught are foundations of investigation, which is basically an overview of the different types of cases that investigators work. Criminal investigation, legal investigation, fraud investigation, and background investigation. Those are pretty much what I consider the core courses where, they're learning, a new skill of sorts. Because I'm an crusty old veteran that's been doing this for 30 years, I thought the audience would also like to have a younger, fresher view. Mm-hmm. So I asked Tom Bailey, and Tom is a NALI guy. I'm, as you know, a member of the National Association of Legal Investigators. Sure. Tom works for Diane Cowan. I don't know if you know Diane. Yeah. She's probably one of the career, the best criminal defense investigators in the country. Tom and Diane are awesome. They're great people, based out of Philadelphia. So I asked Tom to do 4 classes for me. Yeah. He did interviews and statements, skip tracing, ethics, and report writing. Sure. And he's working on criminal defense investigation. And then the other class that I'm going to add, and then hopefully be done with the online classes for the time being, would be surveillance. And James Nanos from PI Magazine, who's a surveillance expert extraordinaire, sure. Will be doing that one for me. Yep. And then once those 11 are done, I'm going to be rolling out phase 2, which is an actual certificate program where they take all 11 classes, they get a certificate, and hopefully they can go out into the world at an entry-level position in the field.
Yeah. And, it's not even a way to look at it like, okay, so I'm book smart now. Right. It's more along the lines that these are the hard skills you're going to need to succeed in this business.
Exactly right.
If there's nobody teaching you how to do this stuff, you're not really going to figure it out on your own. It's not like one of those try till you fail type things. Right. You really need instruction on doing this kind of stuff.
And there are basically we're in the information business. I mean, PIs are hired to get information of different types. And there's three ways that you can get information. Number one, you can interview somebody, and find out with the information that you know. Number two would be you do records research, whether it's online or you go to the courthouse and you dig up, records about their property or their marriage or whatever it is.
Right.
And the third way is doing surveillance. I once had a meeting with the department chair of the criminal justice program and at Boston University. And I said, Doc, no offense, but you have this criminal justice program, which basically teaches people how to be work in corrections or become teachers. Right. And you don't teach any of the three skills that they need to be an investigator. I mean, seriously, this degree, and why is it so narrowly focused? I mean, I was an English major in college. I mean, the whole world was open to me.
Right.
Not this narrowly focused. So, I mean, that's what it's all about. When I went from federal law enforcement, I didn't know what insurance investigators did. I didn't know domestic, investigations, what that was all about. So that's what we do. We cover everything that you would need to know on an entry level. Nothing's going to replace the experience of actually working the case. But if you have the information where you can be an asset to the owner of the agency or the person that's going to hire you,
sure,
that's all I'm looking to do.
Yeah, and I think that's why like a lot of the states require you to have that hands-on experience, right? The 3 years, 900 hours, whatever it is, where you've got to actually do the work. And even like I know in New York, like you can't pass that test if you don't do the work, right? So if you were going to go and take the PI test, you have your 3 years experience, you have to show them before they give you permission to take the test. Right. A lot of the questions on that test, if you didn't actually go out and do the work, you're not going to figure it out. And it's interesting to hear you talk about all this stuff, because I'm remembering back in my own education, right? John Jay College of Criminal Justice. At the time I was at the school, it was like the number 2 or number 3 criminal justice school in the United States, and it was a lot of book training. I mean, it was all book training, so there was not that hard skills. If you're going to go and do private investigative work, like this is what you need to do. Yeah, there were some security management classes. There was, police science and all this other stuff, but they didn't have it at the time. And what's interesting is I've been asked a few times, I've actually gone back to some of the professors and they brought me in to speak to their students about doing investigative work and what that looks like. So I feel like at some point somebody realized like, hey, like we're not adequately preparing our students to actually do the work out there, that we need to bring people that are doing it already. And what better person to bring back than, someone who graduated from the school to come talk about their success.
Absolutely. And think about law school as well. I mean, lawyers get 0 hours training on investigation, yet, that's a critical part of the work that they need done. So certainly, and when I was with Nally, we had a liaison with the criminal defense investigators, the criminal defense bar. And we tried to get them to have PIs come in and teach classes. And, they wanted our money, they wanted our people to become associates, but they didn't want to go that step and have, so that they got, let me understand this. You got lawyers training other lawyers how to investigate their case. I mean, seriously, with 0 hours of training, how does that work out? Not well, obviously. So
bar association, it's great. It's great to be an investigator and get involved with the bar association and teach them like how what their investigators should be doing.
It's a great marketing tool to get to speak to them and tell them what you can do. I mean, basically we make their cases for them, if you do the job correctly.
Exactly. If you do it properly, they're without a doubt an investigator very early on, especially on personal injury cases, which that's my bread and butter. Everybody knows that. That is the way to do things. Now this is great, man. And again, like your background and the fact that so many people, different people, I think it's really impressive, to be able to bring in these speakers and have this, training with guys like Jim. Anybody who knows Jim Nanos knows there's nobody better out there to talk about surveillance. And it's not even the equipment per se, because yes, all right, so Jim's the, PI gear and all this other stuff, but his like pre-surveillance, teachings on what to do before you get out there, it's priceless, man. I've heard Jim talk 4 or 5 times at different events, and he really knows his stuff.
Absolutely.
Jim, send me $20, Jim. I know he's listening.
And in addition to the online classes, I also, I've written several books, fortunately. So, and I include those as part of for example, I updated the 3rd edition of my Practical Handbook for Professional Investigators. Came out in 2013. I updated it and came out with the Guide to Investigations or Professional Investigations.
Right.
So I offer that if you sign up for the foundations or the criminal or the legal class, you get that as a free download, the digital copy of the book. If you take the ethics class, I have Kitty Haley send you a copy of her book, which is the Bible for professional investigators on ethics. I mean, and it's a must-have for somebody that owns an agency or that's out there dealing in the world.
Yeah.
I wrote a book on fraud investigations. You download a copy of that to go along with my lectures. So it's not just the material that I'm teaching. You have a book that's got all of the classes that I taught at City College, the 8 classes rolled into one book. So it's a resource. I mean, you're going to forget what I tell you, probably 20 minutes after you finish watching me, but you'll have the book where it's got the information, plus you download a copy of the PDF, which is the PowerPoint of the material that I use to make the presentation.
Sure.
So it's all there for you to keep, that you can refer back to whenever you want to refer back to it. And I get the other people, they get a 1-year subscription of the digital edition of PI magazine.
Yep.
So they get to see the names of the experts in the field. So I mean, what I'm trying to do is make a complete education for the person that's taking the classes.
Yeah, that's great, man. And it's so nice that we have the ability to use technology now, right?
Yes.
So you're talking about the challenges and the struggles of the early 90s trying to teach these classes. I mean, it's a whole new world now.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
especially post-COVID, where everybody now understands what Zoom is and they understand how to do these classes online and how to market and how to just do whatever you need to do to live virtually. It's a whole new ball game, and you're adapting and pivoting with it, and that's pretty awesome.
And I'm not the only one. I thought that I was going to have a leg up. I spent all this time during COVID to put these classes together and put them online. So I thought that I was going to have a little monopoly. Now there's a lot of other people.
It's a lot of content out there
that were had the same idea, that are putting their classes out there, that the Kelly Riddles of the world. There's now competition for the audience.
But the thing is like, what's interesting is that we all have different perspectives on how to do this work, right? So yes, there's the Kitty Haley Bibles on ethics, and there's Jim Nanos to talk to you about how to do surveillance and all that. But everybody has their own real life experiences in doing this stuff, right? The way you approach an investigative task is different than the way maybe Chris Salgado at All Points down in Florida approaches something, right? So like we talk about different methodologies. The general idea of getting from A to B is there, but there's always your own way of doing things. And to me, it's so important to have different people telling you how to do these things so you can figure out your own way to do it too. So yes, there's competition, but there should be. There should be different ways.
Absolutely.
Different
absolutely. And yeah, mine isn't the only approach. Now, I spent, most of my career in law enforcement working in federal court. So in the cases that I work now as a PI, I kind of specialize, and prefer to be in federal court because I'm more comfortable. I mean, it's much more difficult to win cases in federal court, but so I have that federal perspective, which people that only work in state court, don't have. And again, I don't have, I haven't worked 30 years in state court, so I don't have the nuances of investigation that they might, have. I certainly know that the discovery process is a lot better in state court than it is in federal court. But and the fact that NALI is a great association for people that do legal investigations, not only with the training that they offer, but the CLI program. I mean, and you meet world-class investigators, I think, in that association that specialize in legal investigation, and they're just a wealth of information. They're great resources to go to on any cases that you work in day to day. I mean, I can shoot an email out and get an answer to a question that I have, within a couple of minutes. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, the listservs on those organizations, NALI, Intelnet, NCISS, like if you're not a member of any one of those associations, man, you're really missing out on how to do your job better. Because
absolutely,
I can't tell you how many times like I pull information off of these emails back and forth, and they end up in Investigator's Toolbox because I know people are going to need that later on, and being able to have that catalog there to go do that research is so
absolutely.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Great resource. Absolutely.
Really good stuff. So I know we've got a discount for Toolbox members for your classes. There's a 10% discount on that. Are there any other incentives or things you're thinking about for listeners?
I'm thinking as I launch into this, I'm thinking about anybody that signs up after today for my classes. It'll be 20% discount to all Toolbox members.
Wow. That's great. That's really impressive. So yeah. And how do folks get a hold of you if they're interested in learning more about the program?
Well, they can, in addition to my educational stuff in IEC, I have my own agency, McMahon Associates Detective Division, which was formed in 1991. So the best website to get me is through that one. It's McMahon, MCMAHONPI.com, or email Rory at McMahonPI.com. The name of the online training program is IECOIT.com. IEC being the name of my company, Investigation Education Consultants.com. And then I just added, so it's IECOIT for the online investigative training.com. And they can actually see the 9 classes that I offer, and what's involved in that, and read about the start of my company and who the instructors are and that type of stuff.
Yeah, we'll put all that stuff in the show notes. So let's say you're not a member of the Investigator's Toolbox. Let's say you're somebody who's listening to this podcast. And you're like, you know what? I want to become an investigator. I want to know more about it, or I am an investigator. I want to get better at doing this stuff. Is it any kind of incentives for those folks that to take your program?
Have them, send me an email, and I'll work out something with them.
Fantastic.
I mean, obviously, I'm a big believer in this, and people that get into the field, I want to hire. I'm an agency owner. You're an agency owner. You want to hire somebody that's got some skills. You don't want to spend all your time training them.
Yeah.
So, if you're seriously interested in becoming an investigator, you need training. I happen to think that my training is, the best or among the best out there.
Yeah.
So, why not avail yourself of that opportunity? And plus, I have all these added incentive bonuses that are thrown in, books and whatnot.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you might, if you want to get into the field, you might as well study from the best. And I've been an investigator for 48 years, so I know my way around the field.
I'm going to say you started in 1973.
That's correct. I was appointed Westchester County Probation Officer in September of 1973.
I'm a math genius.
I never knew that about you, Matt.
I am not a math genius.
Neither am I.
I happen to be 48 years old. That's the only reason I know. A little behind the fourth wall here. All right, Rory, this was great, man. It was great catching up with you, and I appreciate the offer for Toolbox members. That's amazing. We're going to have your contact information in the show notes, and I encourage folks, even if you're not a member of the Toolbox, if you're thinking about investigations, becoming an investigator, I think you said it best, right? Why not learn from one of the best? And really, that's what will set you aside when you get into this field. Now, whether it be working for somebody, right? What's going to set you aside between you and the other guy who's applying for the same position that you're at, or what sets you aside from the attorney who's interviewing, who's saying, do I want to hire you as an investigator, or the person who's got a domestic issue saying, am I going to hire you? What are you going to do for me? Right. Being able to understand how to do your craft better will give you the leg up and the advantage. So yeah, thank you so much for taking the time here.
It was my pleasure, and it was great to talk to you and see you as well, Matt.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We'll catch everybody next week on the next show. Take care.
We thank Kevin and Rory for coming on and talking about their services. Insurance and education are vital to our industry, so make sure you check out both sites and consider taking advantage of their great offers. We also thank Crosstrack, Merlin Locate, and Delve Point for sponsoring the show. Now, have you checked out InvestigatorSToolbox.com yet? Because now's the time to do it. And make sure you use code PIP201836 to save $20 when you join. You can do just that through the app, available on iOS and Android platforms. And if you have a question or a comment about the show, just email Matt at matthews@satellitepi.com. You can also find him on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. We want your feedback to bring you the best shows possible. And we'll be back Monday with a new show, so make sure you tune in and stay safe out there.